Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Happy last week of November, which is crazy. We're going to give folks another second or two to dial in and join us today, and we will begin our webinar shortly. And in the meantime, please feel free to tell us where you're tuning in from today via the chat. Denver, Netherlands, Chicago. Welcome, everyone. If you have any questions for today's speakers, please utilize the Q&A box located at the bottom of your screen. We'll do our best to address as many questions as possible during the Q&A session at the end of today's webinar, and thank you in advance for submitting these. We appreciate it. Welcome to HRCI Insights. This webinar series provides insights on current HR services, developments, and technologies. We have just a couple of housekeeping items to address before we get started today. This is an interactive session. Please use the chat box to let us know where you are tuning in from. The chat is also a great way to expand your professional network and to learn from each other. We just kindly ask that you limit your LinkedIn profile shares to about 2 times each, and please be ensured to keep all comments professional and respectful. We want HRCI Insights to be accessible to everyone, so we have closed caption running. If you do not need this resource, please click on Show Caption across the bottom of your screen and then choose Caption Options to hide subtitles. And also another quick friendly reminder to please submit your questions for today's speakers utilizing that Q&A box located at the bottom of your screen. As you all can see, the chat is very interactive, which is great. It just moves very quickly, and we want to ensure that we don't miss any of your important questions. If you're new to HRCI, we welcome you. If you're a returning attendee, we are so happy to see you again. We're honored that you joined us today and encourage you to bring a friend with you next time, whether they are certified with us or not. My name is Sarah Richardson, and I'm the Manager of Business Development and Partnerships here at HRCI. Today's webinar topic, AI Skills for HR Leaders, Master Prompting and Make AI Your Thought Partner. I am so excited to introduce you to today's speakers, Éva Thouvenot-Hébert, and Valerie Gobeil. Ava, Sam, and Valerie, we are so happy to have the three of you here with us today. I love a panel of women, girl power. I'm going to turn it over to the three of you all now so you can take it from here. And thank you.
Great. Thank you. So maybe I just do a quick intro. I'm Ava. I'm the head of growth at Workleap. I've been in the technology space and growth space for almost 15 years and an avid AI reader, users, and I guess as best as I could describe, thinker. So I'm excited to do the workshop today. Val, over to you.
Thanks, Eva. I'm Valerie Gobeil, Head of Talent Management at Workleap. I've been there for 7 years, and I'm really passionate about leadership development, how to bring more innovation in the workplace. Recently, how to help have AI leverage AI to help us have more impact in our work, and really how HR can position itself even more strategically to help the business reach its goals. Sam.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sam. I'm a senior HR business partner at Workleap. I've been in the HR world for over 8 years, working in various industries, notably tech, and I'm really glad to be with all of you here today.
Awesome.
So I think,
Yeah,
we can move on to the agenda. I'll go ahead and kick things off for us. We've got a packed session, and we've got a simple goal, which is to share with all of you practical AI skills that you can use, not just in theory, but in your day-to-day realities. Today, we're going to cover how to master prompting with some practical tools to help make it repeatable. We're also going to cover some real HR examples, so some situations where AI obviously didn't replace judgment, but definitely helped amplify our impact. And throughout the session, you're going to hear us come back to one idea, which is AI works best when you treat it like a thought partner. And that shift from using AI for tasks to using it to help challenge your thinking, that's really where the main impact happens. So we really hope that you walk away today from today's session with the mindset and the skills and the tools to do exactly that. So before we jump into the material, really want to hear from you all, audience. So we'll start with a quick pulse check. Really curious to know where you're all at with AI, with your AI journey, and how you're using it in your day-to-day work. So I'll give you all a few minutes to submit your responses. It's going to be really insightful for us to see where everyone is with their AI usage, and then we'll take a look at those results together. Maybe just give it another second. We've got a huge audience today, which I absolutely love. So very eager to see everyone's results.
Sam, do you see the results? I see results.
Oh, do you? I
Maybe
am
I'll share
missing them.
results. Maybe I'll share results for us here. So we have most people use it regularly to enhance their work. So at 40%, close behind, I've used it to optimize my work a few times. So we have people who have integrated it, and then 90% I've barely tested it, and maybe 5% are using it sort of in a transformative manner. So we hope to see you all move sort of like down to even more integration and transformation after today.
Yeah, that's right. Hopefully today's session gives you the confidence for those of you who haven't tested it out to go ahead and try. And for those of you who already have some experience, hopefully this is going to give you some strategies and how to shift it from using AI as a productivity tool to more of a strategic enabler. So thanks for everyone who participated on that. And thanks, Val, for sharing the results. So before we dive into how this all works, let's take a step back and look at the context. So what's changing in HR today, and why does AI matter so much now? Well, like most industries, HR is evolving fast. We're more strategic than ever, which is great. But it also means we have a lot more to juggle. And we're no longer just reacting, we're measured on how we anticipate business needs, predict patterns, surface insights, and translate data into action. And that's one of the challenges with data. It's messy, it's scattered, it's constantly changing. We've got the business that's also always accelerating. So those old ways of summarizing and analyzing that data just isn't going to cut it anymore, which is where AI comes in. Again, not to replace, but to amplify what we do best. It's going to be there to help expand our capacity to test our ideas, challenge our assumptions, get creative, and really lead with more strategic action. And that value comes in the way we're going to use these tools and the skills and competencies that we build around it. So, with that context, Éva, maybe you can jump in and walk us through how all of this actually works and where some of those limitations are that we need to keep in mind.
Yes, absolutely. So I think that's a good segue into the next part because everybody is trying to use AI at their best capacity, but I think we still don't really know or spend a lot of time understanding how the mechanics of AI works. And if we want to amplify the work, it's really important to understand kind of what's under the curtain. So I thought we could do a little bit of that, and hopefully you have a few takeaways. So the first concept that I think is important to understand with AI and the large language models or LLMs is that AI doesn't think. So when we ask AI a question, it's a predictability engine. So without making this too complex, every word is transformed into what's called a token, which is literally a series of numbers. And that token or that series of numbers is put into this huge neural network, which is the LLMs, and then is used as a baseline to predict the next most likely sequence of numbers. And so, just like when you type on Google, for example, Google's like, yeah, I think that's what you're going to say. And then you see all these auto suggestion. Well, AI does that obviously in a much bigger capacity, but it's always about predicting the next most likely word. So that comes with a lot of great output, but also challenges because it doesn't think, it's just predicting. So when you're asking questions, for example, like, is this mushroom edible? It will take all the information that it digested around the internet because that's how they're trained, and it will make a prediction. So they're pretty good at making prediction because that's what, they're built on, but they still get it wrong. And so you could happen to see a situation like that where you do end up eating the mushroom and then that doesn't turn out very well for you. Um, that leads me to another concept that I think is really important, which is around hallucination, but also how the model is trained in terms of core rules and priorities. So there's three principles that AI is trained on, that in order of priority, they're trying to maintain and respect. The first one is they need to be helpful, harmless, and truthful. So this is in order of priority. And when you're asking a question, it will always try to be helpful and harmless. And the last part is truthful. So when you're thinking of hallucination or you're asking things and then you get something that's completely random, it's one cause, it's not the only one for hallucination, but it is one cause when it's trying to prioritize the helpful and harmless. And then truth is just the last priority of the model. So just keeping that in mind, when you feel like it's becoming an agreeable assistant, it's because it's trying to be helpful. It's not necessarily going to try to contradict you, which maybe is actually what is needed in, some scenario. Um, the last kind of important concept is that the way those models are trained is literally ingesting a bajillion amount of data, mostly on the internet, but also books and things like that. And what happens is that AI is basically a mirror of what exists in the world today. So I know something that's really top of mind for HR folks is that, how our bias treated, when we're working with AI and so on. Well, think of what exists in the world, and it's most likely what's going to be reflected in the answers, which means that original and innovative thoughts usually happens at the margins. And so there's not a lot of that data to train the models because there's just not a lot of that data out there in the world. So it's just important to keep that in mind so that it doesn't act as an echo chamber that's killing either innovative thinking, humanness, strategic thinking. If there isn't a lot of that out there, it's most likely not going to be reflected in the model. And all the biases that are out there as well is most likely going to be reflected in the model. So again, it's not good or bad. It's just something to keep in mind, kind of keep yourself in check when you're using the large language models. So those are kind of three concepts. There's many more, but hopefully that helps you understand a little bit more around the technology and how it's working and giving answers. And I think that leads us to the next prompt, which is around your biggest challenge with AI. We'd love to know what you're facing now, and hopefully that ties into what we're going to talk about today.
Maybe Val or Eva, whoever can see the results since I can't see them. Maybe you could just read them out loud and I can take
I'll
the lead
share.
there.
I'll share when we have answers. I'll leave a few seconds for everyone to record their answer in there. All right, results are in. What's your biggest challenge in using AI effectively? So most people are concerned about accuracy or bias. So I think, some of the elements that Eva shared before can inform us on that. If we understand how the model works, then maybe we can be a bit better at prompting and push it harder, ask it to fact check itself sometimes, because that is a big concern. And when we are asked to report on certain elements, then obviously we're expected to give accurate answers, especially if big decisions are going to be based on that. Second is concerned about data privacy, also a huge one because of the area we work in. Third behind is unsure how to start or how to prompt well. So that's the whole purpose of today. And the last with 10%, I don't have time to learn how to integrate it. Yeah, that's also a challenge. We're all strapped for time, so we have to decide to prioritize that.
Yeah. And it's not surprising that, prompting confidence is a common challenge, which is exactly what we're going to be talking about in today's session. Getting that right approach is what's going to enable people to think more strategically. But talking about what's holding us back, Eva, you brought up a really great point at one of our Workleap gatherings recently. You spoke about how you were optimizing your way to irrelevance with AI, and that really resonated with myself and so many folks. You reframed it into a powerful question around leadership transformation. So, would love to hear more about that mindset shift from you.
Yeah, thank you. I think the real barrier to this technology, although time and technicality might be one, I fundamentally believe that it's ego, because building things with AI will be the new norm in 5, 10 years from now, whatever the timeline is. So building the things won't be the challenge, but accepting that we need that technology and the resistance to that new capabilities is really the barrier, because it's an identity shift. It's letting go of who we've always been and parts of the job that we've always done to become somebody else. And I think that's a big shift. Ultimately, that's like a really uncomfortable place to be for a lot of us, if not for everybody here and in our company, because our role is shifting not because of a market trend, but really because a significant portion of our work will be done better by somebody else outside of us. And that's really uncomfortable. But there's a catch-22 here, which is we can keep optimizing our way through this journey and transformation, but optimization is not transformation. It's really about finding who we will become by integrating this technology, because we are no longer going to be the right people to do a subset of tasks. So the real question is not will you, can you, is sorry, it's not can you, is really will you. And it's really a question that we should be obsessing as, leaders in general, but also as HR leaders as well, because again, that shift and change is inevitable. And reflecting on, what our future will look like, what our team's future will look like, what our employees' futures will look like, and which parts of the roles will we replace, but also what do we create ourselves? What's the future that we create for ourselves is really, I think, a transformational question. It doesn't have a timeline. Nobody needs an answer for tomorrow, but I think thinking about it today will help, manage a transition a lot better. And I think one massive opportunity is that as AI commoditizes task, the moat is still the human experience. And I think that's something really core to, this practice. This is the real opportunity because it's our ability to connect, to strategize with nuance, to lead with empathy. This really becomes our value proposition, because AI can't replace that, can't repl it's not a task. And ultimately, at Workleap, but in other, places as well, that's kind of what we're trying to integrate in the product philosophy, right? We're trying to build an AI-powered experience, but that brings in the human at the right moment to give the right value. And so we're building for partnership, not replacement. And, we try to automate the noise, automate the task so that the human can still deliver the wisdom, because again, that is still the value proposition that we can bring to the table. So it's a little bit like the Phoenix moment, that I like, the way I like to call it and see it. It's an invitation to let some part of that job go and focus and refocus on that strategic thinking, the creativity, the sense of judgment. Remember how AI works. It's a predictability engine. It will predict the average, but it will struggle to predict what's really uniquely you. So I think this is still your own identity that AI won't be able to predict, in other words. So maybe I wanted to just leave you before we get into the more practical part of the workshop with 2 questions. Again, they're not, questions to answer tomorrow, but they're something to ponder on. What are you holding on to because it's part of your identity today? And then who could you become, or what would that role be or look like, if you were letting that go? Uh, no good or bad answer, just something to, again, ponder on. Because the next frontier of AI, again, is not going to be doing more. It's going to be doing something completely different. And we just need to rethink that capacity. But embracing AI is also embracing your humanness. And I think that, there's something comforting there, because human and then, the HR function and HR leaders in general will also be at the core always in this next shift as well. Um, yeah, I think that's kind of the TLDR, or the summary of the concepts here. Do we want to transition to something a lot more practical? Yes.
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. All right. So now that you have those questions in mind and that you are enlightened, let's move to prompting. So I'll share with you a couple concepts, and then we'll do a little bit of a demo to see how those concepts can apply. So hopefully you have a really solid takeaway. And then before I jump in there, um, I want to just highlight that prompting is like the new coding, if that makes sense. Again, knowing what you know now, that AI predicts the next most logical word. Whatever you give it as a context is the only thing it has to do the prediction. So the model is trained on all the data in the world, right? But this is a static data set. And they only train the models once to twice a year top, because it's so expensive, right? Very expensive, very environmentally, damaging and so on. So knowing that they're only trained once or twice a year, the core knowledge is a little static. And then the chat window that you would be using is the only context it really has to do the prediction. Hence, whatever you put in this chat is absolutely critical to get the best answer possible out of the LLMs. So to do that, I picked 3, but there's a bunch of prompting techniques, but I think these are really interesting and hopefully helpful. The first one is role assignment and jargon. So role assignment is really basically putting AI in the position of understanding what is their role. So when you start a prompt by saying, for example, you are an HR consultant, or you are, a specialist in performance management for XYZ company, and so on. What it does actually in the LLMs is that it narrows the field of possibility. Thinking of the fact that they know the entire planet, right? How many possible answers to a prompt like do the performance review for Sophia, versus you are an HR expert in performance review. You've wrote XYZW book about this. The models are trained on the internet data, so they learn to associate types of content with types of profiles. So an academic paper, for example, a long research paper would often be associated with doctors, right? Or scientists, or folks that have doctorates and so on. So when you assign it a role, it just really narrows the field of possibility, and again, increasing the likelihood of giving a really good answer that's appropriate for you in the context that you're building. And jargon is like a little parallel concept to that. In a similar way, the more jargony you are, and obviously we say don't be jargony when you talk, but in this case, please be, because the more specific, the narrower the possibility, right? The company size, the type of words that you would be using to do, for example, performance reviews or so on, is like just going to narrow it to the essential. And again, when you have 100 billion data to process and predict, the narrower, the better. So that's the first concept. The second one, kind of show and tell, or future prompting, is basically providing example of the outputs that you're looking for. So I know that personally, I like to be a little lazy. I don't want to tell it what it looks like because it takes me a bit more time. But the way again, large language models are built, massive brain, for lack of better words, and every token is put through the brain to try to find the best combination. And so when you tell it the good answer or what it looks like, it narrows the field of possibility, but also it's going to take a different path because you're already showing what the good path looks like. So it's going to emit a bunch of possible answers to try to get as close as possible as to what great looks like. So it's basically giving you, you're giving them guidance in terms of what you want out of it. And that's just going to drastically increase the quality of the output.
Ava,
And
can I jump in here actually? I just have a specific examples that maybe could be interesting for people. We're all in our environment, we understand our stakeholders, and sometimes it's about building on our wins sometimes. So if we've managed to, really present a case that had a business case that worked with our stakeholders, or we know that our stakeholders really love it when we present like these types of metrics or these success criteria, you can build on what you've done before that's worked to be like, this has been submitted in the past. It's worked really well. It was super well received and it led to like important decisions. So you could also work on your wins and show the AI this is a sort of thing that works with my stakeholders, and then let it work for you to present the data in this new context or this new environment or this new question that you're working on. Yeah.
yeah, thank you. Thank you for jumping in. The last, I guess, tip is what I would call knowledge blocks. So again, because you know the chat is the only context they have, because you know that the better and the more specific, the better the outcome. You probably don't want to be writing things about your company, your team, your role, the product that you have, or so on, every single time. But that is what would most likely get the best output because it would understand all the context that you're living in. So, one tip that takes a bit of work up front, but then saves you tons of times afterwards is things that you know you will reuse, pre-write them and standardize them in what I call knowledge blocks. Save them in a Google Doc or Word doc or in a text editor, wherever you want, and they become context template. So when you're like wanting to do some specific task and you want to explain the company and whatever, you already have it written, boom, 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 you can copy them. I have over 150 knowledge blocks that I can interchange some stuff about me when I wanted to write a little bit more like me or things like that. So processes, standards, I think really that can save you a ton of time, and will help you write more comprehensive prompt faster. So I think that's like a really interesting tip, and again, can save you a ton of time and increase the quality of the output. So why don't we battle test it and see how it does? So we took a classic prompt that is short and non-descriptive, and then we'll see how it does. And I opened two different LLMs just to also give you different perspective because every LLM is trained differently. The output will be different, and if you rerun it because it's a predictability engine, the answer will also likely be different. Okay, so if we try to write a performance review for Alex, so I kind of obviously started it here, and I'm gonna start a new chat. So this one is called Manus. It's just an LLM, really good one, but I'll show you, GPT or OpenAI right after, and then you'll see the differences. So I'll just, write this prompt in there, and then we'll see how it does. While I do that, I have this little tool. This is free. There's many of them, right? If you look at like AI prompt checker, validator, whatever, you can have a bunch of them. Just to show you some of the recommendations that translate into the concepts that I shared and how it would rank this prompt in terms of like good to bad. So I'm going to write this down. I'll say check prompt. And then it says that it's not great, but it also tells you, why. So it says there's not enough context for the performance feedback. We didn't assign a role, going back to our role assignment, prompting technique. And then I didn't talk about any audience and or tone and the way I wanted the delivery to happen. So I could optimize this myself, right, and do it in a better way. But for the sake of today's clinic, I'll just click enhance the prompt. And then you'll see what it added, right? Okay, now I'm a senior project manager. I'm Alex's boss. I want the expertise, and I clarify what great looks like. I'm basically telling it what it needs to include. I tell it that it has experience in performance management to deliver the feedback that is precise, empathetic, conducive to professional growth. So again, could be even a better prompt, but it's just to show the process and the thinking behind it. Well, I did that. I got now a performance feedback for Alex, with a little intro. It gives me some strength. They have a positive attitude and a strong commitment to the team. Again, I didn't give it much to go on, right? So this is it's kind of making it up a little bit. Attention to detail. It gives me some areas for improvement, communication, some examples, meeting deadlines, and it kind of gave me a little action plan. So it's not bad. Obviously, it's not great, but it's not bad. Now, if we were to rerun it with the improve prompt, we'll wait and see what it does. And while I do that, I had done them in GPT as well. And you can see it took a similar approach, but a little bit of a slightly different output. It focused on the strength, areas for improvement, gave me next steps. So it didn't really give me an action plan, it gave me next steps. So a slightly different spin. Obviously, it gave me extra support if I needed it because it wanted to be helpful. So now I have the second batch of the performance review with the enhanced prompt. And you can see already that it's a lot more specific and a little bit better written as well. It gives me an impact analysis, which is interesting, actionable recommendations for improvement, how they can improve, and so on. So again, I think it did a better job at giving me what I really wanted and what great looked like. And in reality, you probably have templates or things, in the way that you want them to be formatted. So you could also include that in the prompt and the documentation so that it gives you an even better outcome. So that's the first little prompt. Do we have time for another one, Val? Or what do
Yeah,
you think?
let me just jump in there, and maybe I want to comment on a few things. Like you said, like this, the LLM doesn't know much about, I think, Alex that was there. So the most you can feed it, but sometimes some of the challenges managers when we're trying to do the reviews is actually like surfacing the information and putting it all together and analyzing it. But I read somebody in the chat said why we should link it to the competency model. So in most LLMs you can upload documents. You can be like, this is Alex's role description. This is actually an extract of the goals he had this semester. This is some of the things that he's led. Sometimes you have your team members that have everything documented. More and more with the remote work, we have more documentation around what people are working on. So is it does Jira have traces of what Alex's work on, or Confluence, or is it more in Slack? Do we use a specific product where we have goals? Sometimes you can connect those with an LLM with the APIs. Sometimes you can't, but you can always upload the documents, and that will also feed it some real data so that you can actually enhance the output.
And if I may just also add on the whole why prompting is so powerful, what really stands out to me is, um, turning the skill of AI into your collaborator. The prompts and the modes that you explained earlier, Eva, those are ones that I use commonly, like the act as someone else, assigning a different role. So really just using the same scenario or prompt, but just using it to act as a different role in the organization because, you're the expert in your field, right? Like you're the HR expert. You don't really need AI to tell you what to do. But you'd love to maybe get a 360 perspective of someone else, maybe like a learning, an L&D manager or a CHRO or some other expert in the field. And so I really encourage folks to play around with the act as and assigning role, and also like challenging AI, right? Not just taking what it's telling you, but really like asking it questions to challenge the AI, but also to challenge your own critical thinking. So maybe asking like, why is this the right approach? Why are you proposing this? And what could go wrong with that approach? Or even making it to think more future oriented. So thinking ahead, like if I implemented these changes, what could go wrong? Maybe not today, but in 6 months from now, right? So again, you can really experiment with the same scenario just by using different prompts and rephrasing, and it can give you really different results that could be interesting.
Yeah. Thank you, Samin. Okay, second example, and then I'm going to try to add some spice to it. So let's say we want to summarize the results of the latest engagement survey and recommend actions for managers. I will take this prompt here and I will do what we said. I will copy this data. This would be an extract from all the survey data, and then I will press send. And in parallel, I will improve the prompt, but instead of using a prompt checker, I'm literally going to ask this model to do that for me. So I'll start with that. And then I'm going to say, help me create a best in class prompt so that AI can help me achieve this task, for example. So the task being that. And then I could add a little bit of, context, for example, and then I'm going to voice to AI because that's another thing that you can do because typing takes time and voicing is faster. So I'm going to say, okay, so obviously we work in a software company. We have about, 400 employees. We're remote, so engagement can be really challenging. We always try to get people to connect together. Now we have great visibility on engagement data, but we're not always sure that the managers know what to do next. So it's really great if they can have better recommendations. That's really a blocker for us. And also, you're really a specialist and an expert in, culture management, organizational change. You've also done many, many studies. You've wrote book about remote work and how to create more, tightness and connectionness. And also you're really like have a great lens on how we can use data to influence decision and recommendation. So it's going to translate it. If it does, it does. Again, I kind of winged it a little bit to give you an example. So you can see it kind of typed in everything I just said, and I gave it more context. And now we'll just press go to see what it will give us in terms of prompt. And all right, so you can see the prompt that it gave me. Expert consultant in organizational psychology, culture management, leading author on work dynamics. It's actually pretty good. Translating engagement data into actionable strategies. So let's see. We will run this one in a new window. I'm going to add the exact same data and we will see. In the meantime, we had not yet. We don't have yet our output. You can see it's stinking. But we will. I can show you in the meantime what it did because I had obviously tested it before, which was still pretty good for an average prompt. Manus AI is extremely good at visualization, so you wouldn't really get that in OpenAI. If we have time, I can show you. It gives me a summary, about 299 employees across 6 departments. Overall satisfaction is strong, but we would have 29 employees at risk. I'll show you some, engagement snapshot, deep dive by department, manager versus individual contributor divide, which is interesting. What drives satisfaction, what doesn't. So it's not bad for having very little beef, let's say, in the prompt. You can see so this one is the big, oh no, okay, so there you go. So that's the short one that I had created as well, and it redid something fairly similar. slightly different but similar with just, again, department divide, key driver satisfaction, employees at risk, and so on. While I just wait for this one to be done, you could see here in the OpenAI, I had the same question, I gave the same data, and you can see the way that it spit it out. I find it a little less visually pleasing. But it gave me the main insights to highlight to managers, recommended actions, and so on. But it's still quite shallow, for I guess, in-depth analysis compared to what I think we will get. While it does that, I don't know, Val, if you had any, thing you wanted to add to that.
I'm actually curious to show them. I don't know, we can wait if we want, but I think one point is you can be a builder, and this is what Eva has been showing, and Eva's pretty advanced in the use of AI, actually. And that's definitely somewhere where we sort of need to go and adapt. But maybe one point that we also should keep in mind is that, all the tech companies out there, especially the ones that are making the HR products that you're using, are also thinking ahead and thinking, how can we integrate AI in our products? So I also want to invite you to look at what's in your HR stack and what's already been done in terms of integrating AI. And sometimes some of the work has been done for you. And we're going to be doing some demos on some Workly products that have been integrating AI. But for all of you to sort of look and get clear on what are already the AI capabilities, it doesn't change the prompts that you can get better at doing. But sometimes it has integrating certain elements, like your context. It already knows certain things about you, and it does cover some elements around privacy because I have been seeing a few comments in the chat around like, what can I really feed my engagement data to, on the web? Where is that going to end up? So it's also something to have in mind that the products I already use have a lot more guardrails around privacy that are built in, and some have some advanced capabilities like that. And we'll be doing some demos on that very shortly. Maybe we move on
Yeah, we
quickly to
do
that
that
since
actually.
okay.
That's a good segue. I mean, you can see the beautiful analysis. I'm sure it's better, but I think I'll pass it over to you, Val.
Okay, thanks. So we're going to be looking at that. We're going to be looking at what are some things that already exist in some products. What I'm going to show you is you can replicate it in the different products that you are using. I'm going to show an example for performance management and one for engagement, and also show how you can leverage those new skills that you learned in terms of prompting. So this is Workleap Performance. So I'm actually not going to use it for the manager review. I'm going to use it for something that we have to do as HR often, and that is to manage the review cycle. And so there's a lot of elements that come into play, the frequency, what's the content, what are the questions, or is it going to be 360? You can think of all those elements ahead. You can also have AI make some suggestions, but in the end, with the new integration of AI in products that help you, that support you around performance management, a lot of it is made super easy. So I'm going to create a cycle, and I'm going to go with a really basic prompt that we're probably all going to agree it's not, not the best. I'm going to go suggest a 360 review. So I'm just going to go there, and we are going to see. So it's going to work on it. It's going to take a few seconds to appear. And when it does, we're going to look at what is suggested when we give little context. So we already have something here. So 360 review performance. So it decided, so again, it sort of like went on its whole knowledge base, and it suggested, well, maybe these are some good dimensions around 360 review. It included manager, self, and peer. So it incorporated the 360 aspect, collaboration and teamwork, achievement of goals and results, strength and growth areas. So I mean, that's a starting point, but maybe not very personalized to our organization. So you probably have a little bit more, constraints or ideas, or you put some thought into this. So that's where the prompting comes into play. I'm going to copy this here. We're going to go through the prompt. Oop. Hmm. Okay. I miss basically. Okay. I'm the head of a talent. Okay, well, it was there. I'm in charge of setting up the performance cycle at my company. I'm the head of talent management at a 400 people tech company based in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. I want to run a quarterly review. I want it to be maximum just 10 questions. Make one section based on goal attainment, because, for example, for us, goal attainment is one way to measure performance. One based on embodiment of our key company values. I list them here, and one based on overall impact. I want a good balance of rating scale questions and open text questions with a fairly informal tone. Make sure there's opportunity to share developmental feedback, include feedback, peer feedback with only open text questions, because maybe we're not really comfortable with peers rating others. So let's see in real time sort of how, oops, maybe I can move this, how this will be modified. So I'm still in my form, but I just prompted it a lot better to see how can it adapt more to my company. So let's see. So now it changed. It's a quarterly performance review, and it really modified my section. So goal attainment. So that's aligned with how we measure success, company values in action. And so it included a section on our company values and overall impact and feedback. So again, and it included, so what's one developmental area for this employee to focus on next quarter, so that it integrated my prompt around, I want to make sure that it's really focused on performance enablement and it helps employees develop. And you can iterate on that. You can ask for edits and we'll make the edits right away in your form. A few things that I had thought we could do, like, oh, I actually want one question per value, or I want to limit it at this number of questions. So that's one way that you can really play with it, and instantly you can sort of come to a place where you have a form that's, almost ready to launch. Basically, you iterate on it. You can fix a few details like what are the deadlines, how many peer reviews do I want, who's participating in this, and then launch. So a lot shorter than what we're usually used to. And just by making it super specific in your prompt, it will integrate the changes right there. And it does save you a lot of time and manipulation around setting that up. I'm going to show you. So that was performance management. I'm going to push it and show you one last example. I know we're around time almost, and I want to show you an example on engagement. So if we're all, as part of our work, we have to analyze, how's it going in the company? So again, some of our projects have been integrating AI here. Analyze feedback is something that wasn't there last year, but it's here now, and I bet it's there in some of the products you use. So analyze feedback. It's going to analyze the feedback from our organization called Globex last 3 months. And it's going to give me a little summary here. So it tells me what period it's taking and what you need to know, why it matters, and what you can do next. But that was with no prompt. So maybe that's good. Maybe it's what I want to know. But what if what I really am interested in is preparing my summary for my exec? I want to share this with my chief people officer who has an exec meeting next week, and I want to be a little bit more specific. So there's a way to be a little bit more specific. For example, building on what we showed here, I could say, act as chief people officer, preparing a brief for the weekly exec meeting, make it very short and concise. My exec doesn't have time, data backed and action oriented. Follow the following structure, and I can share, and let's see what it does here. So a lot more executive, key observations and trends. Risks, because I was super important. I know if I know that for my exec, that's what they want in terms of flags, and root causes. Again, if you're going to say like, okay, but what's the cause of that? Are we acting on it? Recommended actions. So again, the more I feed it, and a few metrics, I want them to, they want to know how many people answered, what's that based on in terms of data. So the more I feed it, the more precise the output, and the more it can work for me in the context. That was
If
my
I
little
could just,
demo.
yeah,
Yeah, go
great.
ahead.
Thanks so much, Val. Just want to maybe share some use cases that, because I use the analyzed feedback often, and I love using it, especially when we're rolling out, whether it's new initiatives or programs, and we're wondering, like, did it make a dent? Did it like change anything in terms of culture and engagement and retention? And so oftentimes, again, instead of chasing that data, I love to use the analyze feature so that it's giving me that quick analysis. So like I can know where exactly the impact was, where it's lacking, and I need to maybe focus more on, and also benchmarking and comparing against like previous quarters. Now, it could be for like rolling out new programs, but you could do that for anything. It could be like previous performance quarters and reviews that you want to also analyze as well. So again, playing around with these features and the prompts is really helpful.
Perfect. Thank you all for the presentation. It was wonderful. We do have about 10 minutes left for some Q&A, so let's dive into that. Before we jump into that portion, though, just a couple of very quick things to note. You all are going to see a poll pop up on your screen in just a moment. There it is right now. It's asking if you would like any more information from Workleap. If you would like to chat with a member of their team, please select yes, and we'll be sure to put you in touch with them. And also a reminder that a recording of today's webinar will be sent out within the next 24 hours. And please feel free to share that with your coworkers or friends who maybe weren't able to attend live today. And attendees, another quick friendly reminder that if you have any last minute questions for today's speakers, to submit those using that Q&A box. Although we've got a ton of great questions to get to, unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be able to tackle them all. And then just so we all know, there is a goodie from Workleap in the resources tab too. So please feel free to check that out as well. Okay, great. I don't know if you guys were able to monitor the chat at all while were during your presentation, but lots of great feedback, and people seem to have learned a lot today. So thank you all again. Let's start with this question first. How do you balance speed with quality when prompting? Do you all have any thoughts on that? And I'm just going to pose these questions, and whoever would like to chime in, please feel free to.
Yeah, I can take that one. I really think it depends on the level of quality that you want from the answer. If you're like, oh, tell me what was the weather last year, in North Dakota, you don't need a great prompt. The question's quite easy, and they probably AI probably has a ton of data about it, for example. So it'll be an easy input output. But again, I think when you want good answers and great answers, especially if it's around more complex topics, I think it's worth spending the time. But again, the biggest hack is really ask AI to beef your prompt, and that doesn't take a lot of time. So I'd say, ask AI to improve the prompt plus voice the context over is so much faster. You can blurb it out, it'll make sense of it, and I think that will be better. So I think it's yeah, complexity of the output and the quality desired is sometimes worth the little extra effort.
I would also add to be very specific with your intent. That also helps a lot. So sometimes, again, instead of chasing data, I want to be able to come up with quick interventions and give leaders, spend more time coaching leaders. So I may ask it to, give me 3 actionable insights on something specific, or, rank the urgency of certain feedback that is analyzing to see like how much it will impact business as well.
Thank you for that response. That completely makes sense. Um, let's tackle this question next. Um, this individual asks, what is the true value of paid versus unpaid AI tools? I know there was lots of comments in the chat about proprietary information and protecting company data, and the different tools that are available. Do you have any suggestions on, should you go the paid route, the non-paid route? Does that help with your proprietary information? What are your thoughts on this?
Uh, yeah, I think as soon as you open up the can of worm of sharing, proprietary information into the world, you have no guarantees of where it's actually going and what's kept or not kept. LLMs give you the choice to keep the data and to accept to train the model on your data or not. So you should always have that option to opt out. Um, but it is still, a new technology. So I think whenever sharing really, personal data, I highly recommend you are actually using a software that is proprietary to your company. So it could be OpenAI, you have an enterprise account, and therefore it's what I would call a closed loop system.
Mhm.
Nothing gets in and out, right? It's just close to you and your company. Or again, Workleap, for example, which is, connected with to only your own data, is not being used inside or outside of your company. So I think that's obviously the safest way to use that technology and make sure that you keep the privacy there.
That completely makes sense. Thank you for that. Um, let's do this question next. It's HR focus. This question says, what are simple checks HR leaders can use to keep AI mistakes or hallucinations from slipping into important decisions or communications? Do you all have any thoughts on that?
I mean, somebody suggested earlier, like ask, even prompt the AI and ask it to fact check itself, or to share its sources, share some of the raw data that it's basing itself on. It definitely does exist, and for me, I'm always also sort of gauging in my head, like, is that a super low risk situation, or am I like doing a report on the whole performance data, for the whole organizations, and maybe I'm going to talk about, maybe some cases of over underperformance are going to go under the radar, which is not really what we want, because pay decisions are going to be made based on that. So really, when that's the case, when it's a bit of like a higher stake decision, I prompt it really, I do like a double and triple check, and sometimes I even actually do a bit of a manual check just to make sure, and increase my comfort level. But I asked it, think hard. Sometimes you can ask it to think hard and it actually rethinks harder, and it uses a different model. Fact check yourself and provide some of the from the backup data. That's been helpful for me.
And I mentioned it earlier, but always play devil's advocate with the AI, whether it's to fact check your own assumptions. You may not realize you're entering biases or assumptions in your prompt, the prompt itself, but also in the output that is giving you. So, like Val said, fact check, assign different roles, try to get multiple perspectives, and ask it, why this particular solution versus any other, and what are maybe some advantages or disadvantages. So the whole pros and cons with what is proposing.
I like those suggestions, in asking follow-up questions. And I didn't know that you could do the prompt or to say think harder. So I'll definitely try that out next time I'm utilizing an AI tool. That's a great suggestion. Let's tackle this question next. You all mentioned ego and identity as barriers to using AI during your presentation today. What did that look like for you all personally, if you run into that? And how did you personally work through that?
Well, I didn't finish working through that. So I'm still in this journey. But generally for me, I've listed the common task or areas of responsibilities of my role. That's always good to do, but I did it in a way. It's like, okay, what am I doing, on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis? And then I started first with just what could be really easy to try to automate or low lift. And that doesn't mean it's high value. I've made plenty of mistake. Sometimes creating an automation takes longer than the value you get out of it, but that's part of the journey. And just start there and slowly but surely removing some tasks that had no, intrinsic value into my work, didn't make me better or so on, just takes a ton of time. And then, now I'm a little bit further in my own journey, but trying to generate more value. So it's almost like, save time, and then eventually add value. I think that's kind of the path that I'm on.
That completely makes sense. And I feel like things will continue to grow and evolve. And it seems like you just have to be a constant learner when it comes to these things. And there's definitely nothing wrong with that. So, well, unfortunately, I feel like we're approaching time now. So we'll wrap up today. But again, if you all have been able to see the chat, lots of positive feedback and folks saying that you all presented this in a way that was very approachable and digestible. So folks are very appreciative of that. So Ava, Valerie, Sam, thank you all for your time and your very thoughtful responses during the Q&A, and the presentation was wonderful. We hope that you'll come back and do a webinar with us again soon. And thank you to all of our friends and colleagues who tuned in today from around the world. We appreciate you all and your time. Today's recertification ID is now on the screen, but I'm going to read that aloud for you all as well. It is 721487. Again, that is 721487. 487, and this program has been approved for one HR credit towards recertification. Thank you all again. Appreciate your time. Have a great day. And for those who celebrate, I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving with your loved ones. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.